whatever someone's going through, when you touch them at such the depths of their soul through your music, you are giving them that opportunity to release their own struggles, to heighten their own consciousness. I'm Kristy Austin. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment to Lux Media Studios. Welcome to Whole-ly Chit. I'm your host, Kristy Austin, here to remind you that you are whole. And chit's a Sanskrit word for pure consciousness, the reason I started this podcast. And I'm super excited to introduce today's guest. She is a spiritual teacher. She is a musician. She has the voice of an angel. And I'm so excited to have her on today. Her name is Angela Ferrari. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be here with you and to connect with you.
Yes, me too. So please tell us who you are and how you got into what you do.
That's such a loaded question. Like,
It
who am
is.
I? um, let's see. How did I get into what I do? I'm gonna take it back to close to the beginning because
Thank you.
I feel like it might be relatable for everyone that I was a rebel.
Mm,
And um, I don't know that it was fully harmonized back then, but it was my way of sensing conformity and pushing back
mm,
long enough so that I could discover what my path was. Sometimes I feel like we might land on paths that we think is ours, but really is just the machine making the best of that. And so one foot in front of the other, I could have never guessed that it would put me here doing what I do. I can tell you that I wanted to be a singer. I loved singing. It was a little bit different than, a feeling of like wanting fame or notoriety. It was just something that connected me deeply to something beyond myself. And I
mm.
felt that inside. And so um, I followed that path against all odds, really. I'm not saying that that was easy, and I had to understand what that was inside of me, that passion, that longing for the truth in order to stay there, because there was a lot of lures to do something different or do something safer.
Mm.
And because I stayed, it just ended up unfolding and into this. Here I
So
am.
you said that you loved singing since you were a little girl. That was always in you, just like I'm imagining like this little girl dancing around the house, just using her uh, frequencies everywhere you go. Is that?
Um, yes, I don't know that I was like dancey. It was more like a prayer.
Oh,
Felt like
okay.
a
I like.
prayer. Yeah.
So it was
Even when I didn't understand what that was in reflection, it was like a prayer.
okay.
Mhm.
So you were able to take it inward even at a young age.
Yes. Yes. And that's how that was the knowing. Even though I didn't define the knowing, there just was a knowing
Okay.
at a very young age, a
Now,
recognition.
when you were singing, did you ever notice the shifts with your energy field when you'd sing, or if you were in a dark space, let's say, would you use this as a tool?
100%. It was an acceptable way to scream.
Mm,
And I feel like we all need some kind of outlet to release the madness.
mm, so
Yeah.
true.
I don't want to speak for everyone. It's just my take on things. We all have some I'm going to call it madness just to be a little extreme, but it's the truth. and because we take on the chaos of the world, and it was my outlet to release that,
Yeah.
without appearing insane through singing.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. So
Mhm.
you were able to use that at because that's what I wonder. Um, so many musicians that start at a young age is it's an outlet. It's their outlet. We always find outlets. Sometimes we draw, sometimes we use our vocals. We have to find an outlet though. I don't think a lot of our children nowadays are finding outlets. And so they allow fear to drive them, unfortunately. So having that space and giving yourself that space to utilize those outlets, I think is a very powerful thing. Unfortunately, I think a lot of us have to go through something intense and deep to actually know that this is a gift and we can share it with the world. Not only can we share it with ourselves and the world, but sharing it with the world will then help others, because it's just like when we go into a room with other people, we are giving those people a chance to uh, resonate with us, with our energy, right, with our frequency. We're giving them an opportunity to match our frequency.
Mm,
So whatever someone's going through, when you touch them at such the depths of their soul through your music, you are giving them that opportunity to release their own struggles,
mm,
to heighten their own consciousness.
mm.
So it's so powerful. What, if you don't mind sharing, maybe if you had to experience something, uh,
Want me to just expand on that? I'm
yeah,
happy to.
expand or something,
Yeah.
expand something that you maybe had to go through to find your voice or be able to share it.
Well, I enjoyed what you said, so I'm gonna touch on what you were pointing to, and that first you said it's unfortunate that oftentimes we have to go through something deep, and seemingly on the surface, yes. Big picture, I'd say it's very fortunate because without that, we would be quite shallow. I mean, just as what speaking about, without the depth, we would be
Mhm.
shallow. And that's not necessarily a judgment. It's just that you wouldn't understand me if you didn't have contrast in your life. You would just be touching on the surface of life.
Mhm.
So I find those experiences, and obviously not during the moment. In fact, if you would be having this conversation with me during those moments, I probably would have given you like the biggest F you ever, to be honest, because it's not the
Right?
time to hear that. It's just that big picture in reflection. I can see those are actually the most beautiful moments of my life. So a lot of contrast at a very young age, and what is contrast? Um, Pain, having experiences in life that reflect the illusion that I'm not enough, reflect that I need to be more than what I am. The illusion of that, which I think is the seed for everyone. They all have different storylines around them. And so moving through those things to gain a broader understanding is not to separate me in any way, not to say I have a frequency that you don't. It allows me to see you for who you are beyond your mask.
Mhm. Yes, and I believe we all have all the frequencies within us. But when you hear someone sing, it resonates, it awakens that. Like, oh, I need to hear that. I need to feel that. Um, you awaken something in people that was dormant.
Yeah, so music specifically, the beauty of that, and which is why it stands the test of time and can never be controlled. You can try to control it, but it can't be, is that it's a human language. You know, we're actually singing creatures. Nobody, even though people have grown up to believe that they don't have a good voice or have that story, nobody has a voice like you. And they're the most special singers are not necessarily because they have the perfect voice. In fact, most of them don't have the perfect voice. They have the activated heart through their voice, and you can feel that. And it seems like you're pointing to that feeling when somebody is expressed through love. And so it is a reminder of who we really are. It's just it just has us look in an area that we don't normally look through that feeling. Yes.
And I love the fact that you pointed out when I said unfortunately, and it is actually fortunate. So true.
Mhm.
I believe that 100%. Our darkest times are what make us who we are today, and they give us compassion and understanding and love to work with others and to not judge. And it's now that I can say, going through the things that I've been through, when I was going through them, oh no, there's no way I could ever look at them as anything, a positive income outcome coming out of anything that I was going through. I thought there's no way. This is the it doesn't get any worse than this. And now I see them as my greatest life lessons,
Yeah.
my greatest lessons that I've been through that is transformed me to who I am today.
Yeah.
So I really like that you point that out, changing that perspective when we're going through those times and realizing that this is for the best. This is helping to change our perception of things or change um to help us to grow. It maybe just knowing that when we're going through hard times, right now we might not understand why. We might not understand where we're going to go on our path, but we're on the right path. And
Mm,
in the future, we'll look back and we'll be grateful for this time. Right now, might not be grateful for that hardship, but eventually you will, and it will make you such a beautiful, incredible individual.
mm,
So I really love that because I think that it's hard for a lot of people to see that in the moments. And if we can just see that little glimpse of light and be like, we're going to come out of this stronger, we're going to come out of this better
mm.
and with more compassion and gratitude with the things that we've been through.
Believing Before Seeing, a new bestseller by Candace Barr. Order your copy today.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about it, all the most beautiful stories, whether it's authors or speakers or TED Talks, or they're all born from that place.
Mhm.
And sure, we can write things through regurgitating information, and that's informative. It's just that all the greatest bodies of art, and that's even through speaking and transferring that way, is all born from that space,
Mm,
that darkness. And
mm,
so I will say that there were moments and are moments of that darkness where what I do have is the remembrance of that. I'm not going to analyze it in that moment. I'm just going to hold on and know and that I can trust here.
yes.
Yeah.
You see someone else struggling with the something similar that you've been through, you can have the words to help them through what they're going through because you've been through something similar, so you can help guide.
Or just, yeah, that, or I find even the most powerful is just be the space. Just be the energetic, holding that space,
Yeah.
letting people be exactly what they are in that moment. And wordless communication is often the most profound.
Hmm. Yes, yes, it is. I love that because we don't always need the words. We don't. With your voice, though, I wanted to tell a story because I wanted to see if you have any um, stories with your voice where people have come to you and they're come to you crying or uh, tell you a story about how it's like, changed them or affected them. Would you?
Um, you mean, so let me make sure I have your question right. So if I'm singing something, has somebody ever come up to me and communicated the way that it's impacted them?
Yes.
Plenty, plenty. And a lot of times that's not necessarily, I think it takes us away from our storylines into true connection, into that purity of that connection. And that's usually what's transferred in those communications, not attachment to the story that often keeps us in the suffering. It's just a shift in a feeling inside. And so while there's been beautiful shares and beautiful, that's the nuts and bolts. Like, I don't know why I feel this way, but
Mm,
something in me
mm.
feels so much love. Something in me is so deeply moved.
Is
Um,
that for you? Is that a confirmation of why you do this, or you just do it because you love to sing?
I do it because I love that expression, and it's beautiful that that expression connects with other people, because it's a reminder that we're all connected so deeply, and it's beautiful that that expression can have somebody connect to that and see that. Uh, uh, so I would just say that like a child singing. I don't know that it's really like to look to that, but I certainly honor that.
Okay.
Yeah, that feedback.
Curious because I am not a singer. I'm not a singer. However, I went through uh I learned a bunch of different instruments because
Mm,
I love frequency and I'm into learning how frequencies can change our magnetic field. They can change our moods. They can change mentally how we're feeling. So it just goes above and beyond the power of frequencies, what we can even understand. So I took a healing course, and every month we would learn a different healing modality. We did the drums, we did crystal bowls. By far, we did the didgeridoo. By far, the most impactful for me was our voice.
mm,
And when we learned, our teacher was teaching us how to balance our chakras with our voice. And I'm like, okay, well, this is cool, but I don't want to use my voice. Like, I'm uncomfortable using my voice in a room full of people. I was very uncomfortable. And we started using our voice and sing that would change within us, how we would feel differently. And then we partnered up and we said, okay, well, you can use this to actually heal.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, what are they going to have us do? And they partnered up. We partnered up. Now the partner that I had Parkinson's, so he'd shake. And what we did is we took turns laying down, using our voices, going around the body, just making these different sounds. I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to make sounds as it is. Then you want me to hover over this person's body and make that sound? I was very uncomfortable. Um, so I did not do it out of like say a musician would, where I just enjoyed using my voice. I did it because I wanted to see the power of frequencies. And I remember I closed my eyes because I didn't want to see it, or I didn't want to look at what was going on. And I was making these different sounds. All of a sudden, I locked into this area and I could just feel vroom, vroom, vroom. And I didn't know what sound I was making. All I heard was this woo, woo. I didn't even know what sound was it. Ah, ee, ooh, like I don't know. And afterwards, I'm like, okay, what is he going to think? You know, he sat up there like, okay, would anyone like to share with the group? He was the first person to raise his hand. And he said, most of you who know me know that I have Parkinson's. If you want to look at me right now, I'm not shaking. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. His whole body had completely relaxed, and where he was shaking pretty violently before we started, his body was not shaking at all.
Mm.
That's when I realized like the power of frequency, how incredible it is. So I know that as a musician, you may do it because you just love singing, but it is so impactful for the people who are listening to you that you might not even realize. Just hearing your voice, what it's doing for your listeners.
Mm. Well, yeah, to that point, I feel like there's power in coding the frequencies with intention. So while you can just, yes, sing and not have intention, I think that's beautiful too, just like a child. There's also coding frequencies through the power of our intention. So that means that inside of that space, or that healing space, your tone, and it doesn't have to be just a singer, to your point, because like as I mentioned, that's really an illusion, because we're singing creatures. We're designed to produce those sounds. Call it sounds if you want. You don't have to call it singing, but therein lies a whole other conversation we could get into about the deep rooted, we say, I just don't want to sing, but really it's a closed, well, I'll say chakra of this area, this expression, this truth. So it's deeper than the surface of that conversation. So when you hear people say, even yourself and in others, that, oh no, I can't, or they're just self-conscious around that, there's like way more to that. And so the courage to be
Mhm,
able to do what you did, or do something around that, because there's many things today that allow that voice activation.
mhm.
It's beyond what you can even imagine that awakens.
It's
Yeah.
so true. I'm so glad that you mentioned that also, because the blue is the color of the throat chakra. And when I first went through 15 years ago, my first yoga teacher training, uh, we did this exercise where you dig your hand into this bowl of beads, and whatever color you get is the color chakra you need to work on. Blue. What do you think was mine? Blue. And it's blue has come up over and over again, and I was like, oh, and I would even say, like, in my last marriage, like I felt like I was being like choked the whole time. I felt like someone was sitting on my chest, I couldn't talk. I'm like, I would always come back to this area being blocked.
Mm.
So for me, especially when I say that it's hard for me to use my voice, even doing this podcast, this is a testament. Having this podcast is a testament for me finally opening up that throat chakra after 43 years on this earth of having it closed, because I finally have been focusing on that and opening that. But absolutely, there is so much more to people that don't want to express themselves. They don't want to sing. They have a hard time communicating. With communication, all these things, it's really a closed heart chakra.
Yeah, and I'd say the little nugget there would be that you don't have to attack it directly, meaning go and tell your truth. You can actually go and privately, even in the beginning, like take a singing lesson, or there's a lot of things online you can begin to do in that way. And then it starts to peel those layers that are deeply subconscious, like they're not available in our conscious view. So I would say that would be a great little tidbit to go at. And sometimes, even though that takes courage, it's safer than like, hey, go tell your truth to this person you're afraid to tell your truth to. Like sometimes that's just too far.
Mm,
But this can activate that. This
mm,
ripple effect of this will start to touch areas in your life you can't even conceive of. That
yes.
goes for singers too, by the way. Just because you're a singer doesn't mean you're expressed in your truth.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, Angela. I really look forward to seeing and hearing more of your music. I just started listening to some of your music and I'm just like, oh, it touched me, gave me
Thank
goosebumps all
you.
over.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, where can people find you? Do you have a website? What are your social medias? Where
Yeah.
can we find you?
Social media, Angela Ferrari official. Two websites, one for music, angelaferrari.com, and then shiftprocess.com.
Okay. And do you have music on Spotify
All the
and
things.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I love and appreciate you. And I'm so grateful that you came onto the podcast today so we can talk. And I look
Thank you so much for having me. I really mean that. Thank you.
stay tuned for next week's Whole-ly Chit.